Howdy, folks. What's going on? This is the Outlaw Hatfield back at you one more time. Hey, I got Rich White with me tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit of professional wrestling, the old school variety. Um, some of you might be wondering why are we talking about stuff from the past, from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But the reason for that is simple. That was, in my opinion, the golden age. That was when the stuff was absolutely fantastic and great. I loved it. You had guys out there like Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, the rest of the Four Horsemen, whichever group you want to talk about in the Four Horsemen. There's always that one odd guy out. Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage. These guys all started coming up in the 70s and 80s, got big by the time the end of the decade come. Rich, what you got to add?
Oh, you forgot. Uh, Probably the best tag team ever in the sport of professional wrestling, who just happened to be in my avatar right now.
Well, no, I didn't forget them. I was just, you know, but then, in my opinion, the Road Warriors was probably, I would say they probably earned more money in professional wrestling than any other tag team out there, period.
Oh, they were probably, when they were in the AWA, the biggest draw the AWA ever had. Just because at the time there was no other tag team like the Road Warriors. None. They were big guys. They could move in the ring. They could go in the ring. They could put on a 60-minute match if they had to. They were true phenoms of the sport for their era.
Absolutely. And some of you might be asking, well, why did Rich change the avatar? Some of you may know, others may not. Earlier this week, John Laurinaitis, or Joe Laurinaitis, excuse me, passed away, aka Road Warrior Animal. And with his passing, uh, that was the end of the legendary tag team of Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors. Hawk died what 2012?
Sounds right. I can do a quick Google on that.
Um, and just a few days ago, we lost Road Warrior Animal. So we're going to talk about the Road Warriors a little bit tonight.
2003.
It was that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow. It's hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah, January
I didn't.
26th, 1957 to October 19th, 2003.
Wow. He was young too. He was what, 42?
46.
See. I thought he was younger than that, actually. But yeah, we lost Animal this week, so we decided that tonight we're going to talk a little bit of Road Warriors, talk about some of our favorite matches, maybe a little bit of the history behind the team, um, things that maybe some of you don't know about this legendary tag team that captivated millions of people all around the world. And as big as they were in the United States, in Japan, these guys were literally superheroes. Uh, they were like rock stars and movie stars rolled up in one over there. They were that big.
Anybody from over here that went over there that was anybody, they go over to Japan and they're twice as big because they don't get very many, or at least in the past, you didn't get very many gaijin going over and wrestling over there. So anytime you had any go over there, they were the spotlight of the show, of the tour, because it was rare to see them.
Yeah, but then when that tag team happens to be the Road Warriors,
Mm-hmm.
and you got two guys, Animals 305 pounds, and Hawk that was 275, 280, and just nothing hurt him.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
Animal was not a fat 305. He was rock solid.
yeah, he was a big boy. He was huge. And even over the if you go back to some of the matches he was having, 10 years ago before he officially retired, he was doing the same shit, dude, that he was doing 20 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was just now. Me and you was discussing a little bit of this off the air. Let's do a quick top five. Give me your top five Road Warrior opponents. Yeah, that's a hard one, huh?
The Long Riders.
Okay.
Albert Irwin, and I always forget his tag team partner's name. The first time I remember seeing the Road Warriors was them versus the Long Riders in an AWA show. The Road Warriors came riding down from one side of the arena down a ramp on motorcycles, and the Long Riders came riding down from the other side in those big, the coats they wore. I can't think of the name of the coats right now. But the Dusters with their cowboy hats, and the Road Warriors had the spikes, and they both come down, one from one side of the arena and the other from the other side, and they circle around, just give each other the stink eye across the ring as they're riding their motorcycles around the ring. I was maybe 9 years old at the time. That left an impression. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, number 4, Demolition.
Really? Demolition?
Oh, they had some battles in WWF when they were there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember.
Number 3, the Brainbusters, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard.
Okay.
Number 2, or should I say a tie for number 1, because I can't break these two up. The Midnight Express and the Steiner Brothers.
That's not a bad choice right there. In fact, I would have to agree with Tully and Arn and your placement, because they had some vicious, vicious fights. But I'm going to change some things up. My top 5, and this is in no particular order except for the number 1 spot, because that will have to be the number 1 spot, because I could not imagine how much money these two teams made together. But the Freebirds. The Freebirds and the Road Warriors, man, that was just constant.
But when I think the Freebirds, I don't think of their feud with the Road Warriors. I think of their feud with the Von Erichs.
Well, yeah, that too. But when they went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But I'm going to put the Freebirds in there. I'm going to put the Russians in there.
See, the Russians, I think more with the Rock and Roll Express.
Really?
Yeah. Well, look how many times it took when 84, 85, 86, how many times Rock and Roll Express went up against the Russians for those tag team titles, and it was the Rock and Roll Express always beating the underdog and coming out behind, and all of a sudden they finally got over and beat them.
Yeah, but still, some of the matches that they had with the Russians, the Road Warriors I'm talking, was just a great, amazing powerhouse matches. Like you said, Tully and Arn. That's another, or it's any combination of the Road or the Four Horsemen against the Road Warriors. It's just freaking fantastic matches.
And I'll throw you in a wild card if you want to go that route too. Throw Dusty in there when they were the 6-man tags against the Four Horsemen.
Exactly. That'll bring up something I want to discuss a little later on that I'm sure you already know where I'm going with. But yeah, the mother of all cage matches. For that number 2 spot, it's kind of hard because I'm gonna say it's a tie. Honestly, that number 2 spot's going to have to be a tie between the Powers of Pain and the Road Warriors. I mean, it wasn't an extremely long, drawn out thing that they had done, but as short as it was, the build-up was amazing. I mean, you had the weightlifting competition, the weights come down on Animal's face, the hockey mask. It just got absolutely amazing. And I was all drawn into that. And I would say the another number 2 would probably have to be oh God. And I've done forgot their names now, but it was another tag team. They were really big. Was it the Fantastics that they were? I think it was the Fantastics. But the number 1 is going to be the Midnight Express, period. That, Kingpin's talking about what about Demolition? The matches they had with Demolition, I think they could have been a lot better if different things had taken place. You take the whole Crush thing out of the equation. You get rid of that whole, Ultimate Warrior tag teaming up with the Road Warriors, because honestly, I was never a fan of the Ultimate Warrior. Just never. Everybody made such a big deal of the Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan match at WrestleMania, and I was like, I don't care who wins. I honestly did not care. To me, one was just as bad as the other. But when it comes to the Road Warriors, I think their number 1 opponents would have to have been the Midnight Express, period. The Midnight Express, and there were 2 different areas. I mean, 2 different opposite areas of the spectrum. You had the Midnight Express, who was not nearly as big, but they were cheating and conniving, and they would do things underhanded. And then they would have somebody like, the big boss man that would hit them from behind, hit one of the Warriors from behind, or Jim Cornette with a tennis racket.
Big Bubba Rogers at that point.
Yep, Big Bubba Rogers, exactly. He always wore a suit and a tie and a fedora.
And sunglasses.
Yep. So, if you had to guess how many matches those 2 teams had, what would be the number?
About the same as what the Midnights had with the Rock and Roll Express. Good Lord.
Sheesh. I think probably the Road Warriors and Midnight probably have more. I don't know which.
Are you talking Bobby Eaton and Dennis Landry? Dennis Condrey, or
Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane? Yeah, I know.
Because if you're talking Dennis and Bobby, then they would have had more with Rock and Roll Express. So it's like, which iteration of the Midnights are we talking here? You just talk Midnight Express. Either one with Bobby Eaton.
Yes, the Road Warriors actually.
God, you could throw Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson in there too.
Yep.
As rivals for the Road Warriors at one point.
Yep.
Good Lord.
Kingpin's asking if they ever wrestled the Samoan SWAT team. Yes, they absolutely did wrestle the Samoan SWAT team.
Mm-hmm.
Under several different names. The Samoan SWAT team went through several name changes over the years.
Yes, but they never wrestled the original Samoans though. So.
No. The Crazy Scotsman's here. How you doing, Scotsman? I didn't do a roll call tonight. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just slacking tonight. M. Gabriel, how are you? I have no clue who M. Gabriel is, but welcome to the show, sir. ma'am, whichever. Uh, Now, let me ask you a question. And I alluded to it a few minutes ago. If you said, what was the one match that the Road Warriors truly stood out in? I have my opinion. What is yours?
I think they stood out in every match just because.
Well, yeah, just because who they were. Yeah.
To pick
You
one.
know, even when they wasn't the biggest guys in the ring, like when they were going up against the skyscrapers, they were still huge.
Oh, they were huge their whole careers. They never got smaller like what you see with some guys. You didn't see them slouching over. They were. I think part of that was their longevity. Neither one of them really ever suffered a truly serious injury. You had that one point where Animal did get hurt for a while, and they put Hawk on that run where he challenged Ric Flair for the world title. But that was about it. These guys were never really hurt like you would see some other guys. So they're, until Hawk had started having his personal issues catch up to him with the drinking and the drugs and everything, they were always on top of their game.
Yep.
It says the Great American Bash series. I was thinking there are a series of scaffold matches with the Midnights. Well, especially when Jim Cornette falls from the scaffold every night and eventually ends up breaking his leg because he did it one too many times. And those matches were absolutely insane.
Well, now the one that stands out to me the most was the War Games matches.
Yeah, those War Games matches were crazy no matter who was in them.
Yeah, well.
And usually it was somebody versus the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, normally, yeah. Now, do you remember who the members of the first War Games match was?
God, off the top of my head, no.
Okay, I'm going to give you the rundown. On one team, it was Dusty Rhodes, Nikita, Road Warrior Hawk, Road Warrior Animal, and Precious Paul. Right?
Let me guess, against the Four Horsemen and JJ.
J&J. But the lineup of the Horsemen had Barry Windham.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably the Barry Windham era.
That was a Barry Windham era. And then the next one, if I ain't mistaken, was Luger. The next iteration of the War Games had Luger in it, if I ain't mistaken. But it was the Crockett Cup. There was a big controversy over the Crockett Cup, especially the one where the Road Warriors went up against the Steiner Brothers. Because that match had the fans split right down the middle. You remember that, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
That match
had
fans pissed.
You had probably the two top babyface tag teams at the time going against one another. And they were both monsters. Both teams were made of monsters. I mean, the Steiner brothers were a monster tag team. And the moves that Scotty Steiner at that time was pulling off, nobody his size should be pulling off.
Yeah, Frankensteiner?
Yeah.
Good Lord. I remember the first time I seen Scott do that, and I was like, how does a man that weighs almost 300 pounds jump up, throw his legs up over his head and throw somebody across the ring like that? It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But those were good matches. Those matches with the Steiner brothers. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, all the matches that the Road Warriors had with guys that were built like the Steiner brothers, most of them sucked. Most of them sucked because it was just like two powerhouse teams getting in there trying to push each other around, and nobody wanted to sell for anybody.
Yeah, but you didn't get that with them and the Steiners though, because the Steiners had that extra speed element with Scott. Scott was so damn quick for somebody his size; it was unreal.
Yep. And Rick was Rick was a tank.
Oh,
Rick
yeah.
Steiner was a tank.
Yeah.
You could beat him and pound on him and stomp on him, and he'd just get right back up and keep coming.
Rick Steiner and Animal came out of the same damn mold.
Yep, exactly.
And the thing that made the Steiners have one little element more, they were both excellent amateur wrestlers in college.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they both wrestled in Michigan. So, and people talk about Kurt Angle going to the Olympics. I honestly don't think that Rick or Scott, either one, couldn't have done that if they wanted to. I think either one of them could have went to the Olympics and probably placed very high if they had, just had the urge to do so.
Yeah, the thing that makes it crazy about Angle, though, since you brought him up, he won the gold medal with a broken neck.
Yep.
How many people are going to wrestle at the top of their game with a broken neck? Winning a tournament's not easy to begin with, and then to do it with a broken neck is just insane, especially at that level.
But now, let's go a little off the beaten path here. If you could have teamed up Animal, now just Animal, with anybody else other than Hawk, and form a winning tag team, who would it have been?
Well, it wasn't Heidenreich.
No. No.
To be honest, if Draws wouldn't have got hurt, him and Animal would have been a good team.
Yeah, I can see that.
Scott Hall?
That would have been interesting.
Kingpin says Paul Orndorff and Dusty Rhodes. Interesting you say Dusty Rhodes, Kingpin, because the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes were the NWA six-man tag team champions at one point.
And they held that title for a long time.
And there's a story that goes to how they lost those titles, too, if you remember.
Not right offhand, no.
The Road Warriors turned on Dusty and beat the crap out of him.
That's right. They put that spike.
They turned them heel, and the fans kept rooting for him, so they turned them back face right away again.
Yep, they took the spike to the head of Dusty. Dusty teamed up with Sting, I think it was, after that, because the Warriors had turned on Sting as well.
Yeah, they were going. I forget who they were going against, defending the titles, and the Warriors turned on Dusty in the match, left him laying there bloody for the other team to win the belts.
Now, I'm going to hit you with this. Give me your opinion. Animal and Ming. I cannot think of a more brutal tag team in the world.
Yeah, I don't know if their personalities would have
No. Well, okay.
Ming was more of the crazy guy, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas with Animal was more of a strategic kind of wrestler with a Hawk and the Road Warriors. I don't know how well that their two styles would have meshed. Is what I mean.
I think that in time they could have become a hell of a tag team. But now, if you want to go that route, how about Hawk and Ming?
Maybe.
Yeah, again, Hawk had this especially when he was younger. He had a give no shit attitude about most things. I'm going to get in the ring. You're going to do what you.
Kingpin threw out a good one out there.
Arn Anderson.
Yeah, Animal and Arn Anderson. Yeah, I could see that. Arn is the strategic mind of the team, and Animal is to go out there and kick everybody's asses and then hot tag in or tag in Arn to finish them off. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But getting back to Ming and Hawk, I think Ming already had the perfect tag team partner for him in the business, and that was the Barbarian. Both of them South Pacific guys. Both of them a similar style. Both of them big guys themselves. And in the Powers of Pain, not the Powers of Pain, the Dungeon of Doom, they were a tag team.
They were. And they faced the Road Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. We could sit here and just go back and forth on this all night long because there's so many great wrestlers up there. You just talk about the 6-man tag with Dusty. I don't see them being able to get over in a 6-man situation with too many people like they did with Dusty Rhodes. Dusty was just so, energetic. He had charisma just bowling out of his ass. So, you look at Dusty and then you look at the Road Warriors, and again, two opposite ends of the spectrum.
There was one guy and they did it once with him. Not they didn't win the belts. It was just a tag team match. That was Lex Luger. They booked them all as being from Chicago, if you remember, and it was they were going against. I forget. I think it was the horse. They're going against Three to Horsemen. It was a Chicago street fight because the Road Warriors were booked from Chicago. Luger was booked from Chicago. Luger and the Road Warriors wanted to get even with the Four Horsemen, so they booked the Chicago street fight.
I remember an interview that they had done, Hawk and Animal, after they won. I guess it was the one of the first Crockett Memorial Cups tag team championships, and the Road Warriors won it. And Hawk got on there and he was talking to the interviewer. I can't even remember who was doing the interview at the time, but he said he gave it to his mom, and his mom took the trophy and turned it into a bread box. And I was like, God.
The things people do with trophies. Perfect example, if you listen to some of the stories that people have done with the Stanley Cup and the NHL, is crazy.
So I don't know if he was just saying that to be, part of the gimmick, or if he really meant it.
Yeah, I don't know how you would have turned the Crockett Cup into a bread box. I mean, but in all honesty, in that same vein, though, somebody did once use the Stanley Cup as a Jello mold.
They had great interview skills, man.
Oh yeah.
They had Paul there to talk, but they didn't need him.
No, he just added another element to it.
Yeah, they really, because Animal could talk, Hawk could definitely talk.
Yeah, the two of them were the intensity, and then Paul Ellering would bring it back down again when towards the end of the interview.
Yep, and and Paul did the same thing that Jake the Snake used to do.
He still
does.
Remember?
Yeah. You remember how Jake, everybody else would get on there and they'd yell and they'd scream and they'd holler and they'd cuss and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, Jake the Snake wouldn't get loud.
No.
He'd bring it down.
Yeah. And he still does. If you watch AEW, when he's giving the promos with Lance Archer, who he's managing now over there, Archer, it's like he's the Animal and Hawk, right? He's getting the in your face loud and whatnot, and then Jake gets on there and just brings the volume down again.
Yeah, that was, it was a time in the business when, you had guys that really stood out. Road Warriors being one, Jake the Snake being another. And they were doing things in a way that nobody else was doing it. When the Road Warriors got on television and they said, we are going to take you, we are going to break you in half, and there's nothing you can do to stop us, you believed it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid and I heard, Hawk on television threatening to, rip Ric Flair's head off. Yeah, sort of believed he was going to do it. That ain't all he said he was going to do to Ric Flair, by the way. He said he was going to do several other things that I'm not going to mention on here, but it was a different time, people. It was a different place. You could get away with saying certain things then. that you can't get away with saying now.
Oh yeah.
But you know, God, man, I when I heard the news that Animal had passed away, I was in shock. I mean, we're talking about somebody that I have never met, I've never talked to. The only interaction I've ever had with the dude at all is watching him on television or watching interviews on YouTube or some other app on the computer. And it's hard to believe that the death of somebody you have never had any real contact with can affect you in such a way. But it was, instantly my mind went back to, some of those great matches that he had. You know, like you said, the spike in Dusty's head, or the weightlifting competition, or him just catching Big Bubba Rogers and power slamming. Things that at the time people thought was impossible for anybody to do. Animal was doing it.
Yeah, taking the shot from from Cornette's tennis racket, turning around and grabbing it off of him and hitting him back with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody else did that. Nobody. If you got hit with Cornette's racket, you were going down because it was the whole gimmick was that it was a loaded tennis racket. Animal took the shot from behind, turned around, snatched the racket, and hit Cornette with it.
Yep.
That was beautiful.
The matches they had with Sting and Luger wasn't bad either.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Those were good matches. But by that time, Hawk and Animal had been in the business for what, 15 years?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah. So you stop and you think about that, and it's like, damn, man. And these are memories that it's like I was saying earlier, man. If something was to happen to Ric Flair, after I have been through a love-hate relationship with Ric Flair for 30 years of my life.
Who hasn't? If you were a wrestling fan and you got the Superstation, or if you had lived in the area where you got the what was the name? I can't remember the name of the show right now, but it was the NWA show that was on Saturday mornings before Saturday morning cartoons came on.
Yeah.
I mean, you either loved Ric Flair, you hated Ric Flair, or you loved to hate Ric Flair.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I would wait for an hour before 6:05 every day on Saturday to watch that show. 6:05, I was watching TBS.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 hours, nothing else mattered in my life except what was going on the TV.
There was an hour Sunday evening too.
Yep, there was, and you got to see, the Road Warriors in squash matches against guys that absolutely stood zero chance of beating them. And you knew they stood zero chance of beating them.
Mm-hmm.
More than once.
We were talking about the Rock and Roll versus the Russians. When they beat the Russians for the first time for the tag team titles, that was on TBS.
Yep, it sure was.
So every so often you would get today would be a pay-per-view main event caliber match on 6:05 TBS wrestling.
Yep.
So I mean it didn't happen very often, but
if I ain't mistaken, the first time Flair and Hawk went at it was on TBS.
It may have been.
If I'm not mistaken, it was. And I would have loved to have seen Hawk beat Ric Flair for that title. That would have been just amazing. Now, everybody had a favorite. Everybody had a favorite when it came to the Road Warriors. Which one of the two was your favorite?
Animal.
Mine too. I was an Animal guy all the way.
My brother liked Hawk. I liked Animal.
And that's you can go back and forth all day long. Well, technically speaking, Hawk was probably the better wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as pure aggression and power in the ring, Animal was the dude.
Animal had a presence to him.
Yeah.
Just the size of him. And the
Yep.
funny thing is, he was a big guy. Hawk was taller. Hawk was taller of the two. Animal was short and squat, but he was solid muscle.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to compare,
if you want to call 6'3" short, yeah.
Compared to Animal, I mean, Hawk was what, 6'5", 6'6"?
Yeah.
He made Animal look shorter.
But
Animal was like the D&D dwarf to Hawk's big human guy.
Yeah, he was. But they were still both bigger in life.
Mm-hmm.
And by all accounts, people loved them. I mean, outside the ring, they was as nice as they could be.
Yeah, heard multiple stories about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so have I. Over the years, I was listening to Jim Cornette's podcast here, I guess 2 or 3 days ago, and he was talking about Animal dying and passing away, and so back when they had first started, the Road Warriors had a reputation for actually hurting people. They were green, they didn't know what they were doing really, so they'd get in the ring, they'd do what they did, and because they didn't have the time in the business to learn how to do things correctly, people got hurt. But over time, you listen to interviews with guys later on, it's like working with the Road Warriors was snug, it was tight, but they didn't hurt you. It looked like they were killing you, but they wasn't really hurting you.
Yeah, unless you pissed them off. I mean, if you pissed them off, all bets were off. But they weren't the hothead guys where you're going to piss them off just because you may not have sold a move right. The Steiners had a reputation where if you didn't sell a move of theirs properly, they were going to beat the hell out of you afterwards.
What's going on, Night Strike? How are you, sir? If I had to pick, maybe Hawk. Kingpin, I've heard a lot of people say that, and I'm not going to fault you for it. Hawk was a hell of an athlete, man. Hawk was intense. I always considered Animal the quiet powerhouse. Hawk was dynamite. He was quick. He was intense. He was in your face.
And if you listen to what the guys backstage were saying, Hawk was the one of the two that would sit down and plan out how the matches were going to go. He was the strategist of the team.
But I wouldn't want to run into either one of them in a dark alley and piss them off.
No.
Because here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. Before they were wrestlers, they were bouncers. And apparently they were very good at that too. So these guys were legitimately tough guys. It's an amazing thing to think about, guys that starting off in life, they're bouncers. They're probably living paycheck to paycheck. They decided on a whim to get into professional wrestling. And by the way, it was Hawk and Animal that got guys like Nikita Koloff into wrestling. A lot of the guys you see that made it fairly big in the business, Hawk and Animal was the one that got them in there. um, they would help you out when you needed the help. And like I said, I'm not there. This is all hearsay. I don't have any first-hand experience with this, so don't quote me on anything. But from the interviews and the things I've read, they didn't mind helping you out.
No, they became locker room leaders from what everybody was that you hear give interviews about them, and what people were saying on Twitter when after Animal passed and everything. The two of them were bona fide locker room leaders by the time they were wrapping up their careers. People would go to them for advice on the tag team division and ask them what they thought of doing this or that in their matches. So when Hawk passed and you had the Dudleys do the Doomsday device in the match the day after Hawk had died, they went to Animal first and got his permission to do it. They didn't just do it. They wanted to make sure that they were going to have the stamp of approval to do it.
Yeah.
And
well, you know what?
Do what you got to do. He just flat out told him, do what you got to do, man. You got to get yourselves over. My time's done, basically, is what he told them.
I remember when I found out Hawk died all those years ago, and that was a shock to my system.
Yeah, but you know what? Hawk's passing, I don't think was as big of a shock or surprise.
No, it wasn't.
Everybody saw what was coming with Hawk because by that point, everybody knew what the problems he was having. He had relapsed. I don't think that was as big of a shock. Not to say that it wasn't a shock, but it wasn't as big because if you were paying attention to what was going on with the guy, and this is, a lot of the wrestlers have said this too. You saw it coming. He was on a self-destructive path, and the train left that station, and it was going full bore at that point.
And you stop and you look at that. When Hawk died, I was taken aback. I was like, wow, man. One half of the greatest tag team to ever exist is gone. And yes, I said that, and I will stand by that until the day that I die. If I had to list the top 3 tag teams ever, it'd be the Road Warriors, Rock and Roll Express, and Midnight Express, in that order. Road Warriors being number 1, Road Warriors being number 1, Rock and Roll Express being number 2, and Midnight Express being number 3.
I would change that up just a little. You would still have the Road Warriors at the top. Number 2, you would have both Expresses. And number 3, you would have Arn and Tully.
Well, as great as Arn and Tully was, and they were a hell of a tag team, they really were. But in the same nod, so was Arn and Ole. Arn and Ole was a good tag team.
Arn and Ole never held the world tag titles.
Nope, they did not. But they did hold the United States tag titles.
No, they held the national tag team titles.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
National. I knew they held one of the two. But there's after that third slot, there's so many great tag teams out there. The Heavenly Bodies, the Freebirds, the British Bulldogs, for crying out loud, was a great tag team. The Hart Foundation, another great tag team. Demolition was up there.
The tag team wasn't around long, but were good when they were because one of their members ended up dying. Gentlemen Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez.
Yep, that was a good tag team. Absolutely. Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TA. If Magnum hadn't have had the car wreck, Magnum and Dusty would have probably won every tag title in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But that was not in the cards for Magnum. Magnum would have ended up being a world heavyweight champion.
Yeah,
multiple times.
Nikita was a stopgap. Sting got Magnum's push.
Yep. And that's something else that always surprised me is why Nikita never got that world title around his waist. I think he deserved it.
Oh my
I
God,
think,
Nikita was that guy's nuts. Not in a bad way, but you want to talk about somebody who kept kayfabe? He would not he would not drop the Russian accent except for in his home. As soon as he walked out that front door, the accent was turned on. He was Russian at that point.
yep.
The guy hired a professional voice coach to teach him how to do a Russian accent, and he learned fluent Russian to play the character.
Well, I don't know about fluent.
No, he was fluent in Russian.
Because
Everybody backstage will tell you he was fluent in Russian. I forget which one of the guys that was actually Russian. It wasn't Volkov because Volkov was Ukrainian, but one of the guys that actually was Russian said that he walked up to him in the locker room one day and just started rattling off at him in Russian. He was expecting him to come up to him and start speaking English. He sat there and held a conversation with the guy for an hour in Russian to welcome him into the NWA WCW locker room. He said he was absolutely fluent in Russian, and it just blew his mind.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can remember all the interviews that Nikita done. He's always used that one phrase over and over, and I can't remember the phrase. And he'd say it in Russian every single time, and then he'd go right back to speaking English, and I was like, But
yeah, you could believe he was the one Russian that wasn't a Russian that you could believe was Russian.
Yeah. Oh, he was good. He was good at pulling it off. But man, that would have been another guy that I could see one of the Road Warriors tagging without the other one. Would have been Nikita.
I thought of two other guys while we were talking.
Nikita.
Bam Bam.
Nikita. Yeah, Bam Bam was
And Vader. Vader would have fit right in with them.
Yeah. Oh my God! Could you imagine a 6-man with the Road Warriors and Vader?
Oh Lord!
Talking about an unstoppable force. I don't think there is anybody that could handle that tag team. But so here's a little trivia for you guys.
Imagine this, right? So say you're in like a Survivor Series type match or a War Games match, and you look across that ring, you see the Road Warriors, Vader, and Bam Bam Bigelow.
You start looking for bolt cutters to get out of the ring. Because you're going to have a long painful night.
You have a long day at that point.
That match might last an hour, but the effects is going to last for the next 6 weeks.
You get back to your hotel room, you're taking a bath in a tub full of ice. Your whole body is bruised.
Your phone rings.
All four of those guys could go stiff when they wanted to.
Yep. The phone rings 15 minutes after you get back to your hotel room, and it's one of those guys. And hey, can we do the same thing next year? Have you lost your mind? No.
Or, hey, you want to go down to the bar? It's like, no, I'm fine.
You've already killed me once tonight. Let's not make it twice. God. Yeah. I used to watch the Road Warriors do clotheslines on people. And I'm not talking about the death device where they'd come off the top. I'm talking about just a regular clothesline. And it looked like they were knocking people's heads up into the rafters.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and even when I was older and I knew that it was staged and fixed and I was wise to what was going on, I would see that and I would go, holy shit, that's got to hurt.
Yeah. Well, You know, the Road Warriors were the first ones to institute and put in the thing where when somebody took a clothesline, you flip them over.
Yeah.
They were the first ones to do that.
And I was like, no, man, no. I would not want to take one of those. Because I don't care how much training you've got. I don't care how many years experience you've got. I don't care. That's gotta suck.
Now, let me ask you this. Would you rather take a clothesline from one of the Road Warriors or a lariat from Stan Hansen?
I would probably go with the lariat. The lariat would suck. Good God, one of those Road Warrior clotheslines.
The Road Warriors never knocked somebody's eye out of socket.
Well, this is true. This is true. But I don't know. I think I'd still rather take the lariat than the clothesline, because the whole eye thing only happened once to Vader in Japan, of all places.
I seem to remember a guy by the name of Bruno Sammartino having his neck broke.
Yeah. Yeah. But, as far as just that Road Warrior clothesline just looked brutal.
I mean, there's the thing. It looked brutal. Hansen's lariat was brutal because the guy couldn't see.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Stan Hansen is legally blind.
Is he still alive?
Yes.
I wasn't sure.
He just went into the WWE Hall of Fame a couple years ago.
Yeah. Anybody that was ever in the ring with Hansen would tell you he couldn't see at all.
He could see like 5 inches, 6 inches in front of his face if he didn't have his glasses on. So a lot of the times when he was hitting, he could not judge how close somebody was, and you took some stiff ass shots if you were in the ring with Stan Hansen.
Well, that was something else I was listening to. Again, Jim Cornette. He was talking about how the Road Warriors would tell the guys in the back, look, if you don't hit us, we're not going to sell. So when you hit us, hit us. Because they were all about making it look as real as possible, and they were willing to take shots to make it look as real as possible. Yeah. And apparently they did. And I don't think they ever really lost their temper over it, because I think that's what they expected. That's what they gave. That's what they wanted back.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, God, could you imagine a team from?
Oh, go ahead.
Could you imagine a team from today? One of the the guys that's just been around 2 or 3 years, getting in a ring with the Road Warriors in their heyday, and having to deal with that.
Depending on the team, yeah. Because there's some teams that could hang with the Road Warriors that are out there today. You got the Guerrillas of Destiny in New Japan. They're Haku/Ming's kids.
Oh, well, there you
go. And you got formerly the Revival, now FTR in AEW. They're in the same, mold as what Arn and Tully or Arn and Ole would have been.
Yeah. But for the most part, I do not think there's too many teams out there right now that could take the hits that the Road Warriors was laying in. First of all, they wouldn't be expecting it. They wouldn't be expecting, getting actually hit that hard and being expected to hit that hard back in return.
Yeah, one of the things I think that will put the Guerrillas of Destiny on that list is the fact that they do wrestle in Japan, and Japan, to this day, they still like doing stuff stiff over there.
Yeah. Well, they call it the strong style. And they call it that for a reason, because, they take some hits.
Yeah. And with that in mind, the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Antonio Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura, they probably could hang with the Road Warriors.
Cesaro, I think I have seen him wrestle. And guys, I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. I am not a fan of the WWE, WWF. Never have been. It's just not something that I have ever enjoyed watching. I will watch a match once in a while if it catches my interest for some reason. But Vince McMahon's product has never just done anything for me in the long run. Have I watched some great matches from WWE? Absolutely. But for the most part, I was always a WCW, NWA guy, AWA, USWA. To me, that was more wrestling. When I started thinking about the WWF back in the day, it was even then for me too cartoonish. There was all of this, so many promos, so much talking, so much crap going on that didn't interest me. What I wanted to see was happening in the ring. I didn't want to see a show that had 3 matches and 2 hours with a promo. I wanted to see matches with maybe 5 or 6 minutes of promos throughout the whole night. And with WCW, that's what you got most of the time. And if you got a promo, it normally had something to do with a big match that was coming up somewhere, or it was taking on a storyline that would last. So some of the storylines in the WCW would last, or in NWA anyway, would last for 5, 6, 7, 8 months, a year or more. And it would cause you to get invested in it. Well, I never got that from the WWF. I never got the investment aspect of it within the WWF, because it was, okay, we're going to do this thing here, here, and here, and then we're moving on to something else. Well, in the NWA, it was, we're going to do this here, this here, this here, this here, this here. You're going to lose this match, this match, this match, this match. You're going to win this one, because that's going to build you up, but you're going to lose the next one. And then we're going to put you on a big show, and that's when you're really going to get up. And sometimes it would be like me and Rich was talking a few days ago. Some of these storylines would not only cross different promotions, but different territories, but different promotions.
Yeah, like right now, when we were talking the other day, we were talking about the story they're telling in AEW right now with the Elite. That started in New Japan 3 years ago. And they're just now getting to the climax, what looks like it's going to be the climax of that storyline. It's crazy. Especially when you consider the fact that AEW and New Japan right now are not in any way have a working relationship. And this storyline is still continuing that they started over there coming into the AEW, which they founded a year and 9 months ago is when AEW started. So it hasn't been 2 years yet. You're looking at almost a 5-year storyline that's been going on.
Well, it was the same thing with Dusty Rhodes and the Four Horsemen. I mean, look how long that storyline went on.
Yeah, but with that storyline, you would have a break period in between at some point.
Yeah.
Because somebody would get hurt and they would go away, so that would get put on the back burner.
But they always came back to it.
Yeah.
But they had always come back to it. And it was either Dusty and Tully, Dusty and Arn, Dusty and Rick, back to Dusty and Tully for some reason. Mm-hmm. A match with Dusty against Tully for Baby Doll. Dusty would win. He got Baby Doll for a month. He had her working on a ranch.
Everybody always talks about the TV title with Arn Anderson. When I think TV title, I'm thinking Dusty versus Tully.
Yeah. Dusty Rhodes comes to the ring with Tully's name etched out in his hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that. And that was a good match. That was a really good match. Now, it's not the best match. It's not my favorite match. But it was a very good match.
I gotta say, if I'm gonna put a match at Tully Blanchard's, that's the top. It's the I Quit match.
And notice, ladies and gentlemen, what he just said. The words that he used. He did not get specific. He just said the I Quit match. Now, he would not even have had to have mentioned Tully Blanchard's name. All he would have had to say was the I Quit match, because in my mind, there ain't but one I Quit match that really ever mattered. And that was the first one. And that one was in a steel cage. If I'm not mistaken, it was at Starrcade.
Yes, it was.
And if I'm not mistaken, this particular match was for the United States Heavyweight Championship. And it was Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard. And it went on for about 16 minutes of absolute brutality.
And the storyline was not sanctioned by the NWA. The reason why Crockett was like, well, then screw you, NWA. We're going to sanction it ourselves as our little territory, and the United States Championship is still going to be on the line because we own it and you don't.
And it was that to this day, and we're talking, this match happened in what, 85, 86?
I believe it was either 85 or 86. It was right before Magnum's car wreck.
Well, no, because after the I Quit match, Magnum went on to have that series of matches with Nikita.
Yeah, but it was in those series of matches with Nikita when the accident happened. Because if you remember, in storyline, they played Nikita turning face and joining Dusty because out of respect for Magnum that he earned during their series for the U.S. title. Do you remember who the champion was going into the I Quit match?
Tully.
Yep. It was Magnum trying to get the belt back off of Tully because the Four Horsemen kept interfering. So he wanted a cage match, and not just any cage match. To win, you had to make your opponent quit. Not submit, quit.
And you couldn't tap out. It was, you literally had to get on the microphone and say, I quit. Now,
that was the referee's one job in that match, in that microphone.
And I will say this. That match was absolutely fantastic. It is literally my favorite match of all time, period. There is nothing else that comes close. You can talk about the War Games. You can talk about Hell in a Cell. You can talk about the Elimination Chamber. Talk about all these other matches. And they're all good. They're all great. There was cage matches before that I Quit match. Many of them. But that was the match that started all those super matches that came in its wake. Without that I Quit match, you'd have never had a War Games. Without that I Quit match, you'd have never had a Hell in a Cell. Without that I Quit match, you'd have never had the Elimination Chamber. The brutality of that match with just two people. Now you have to remember.
Well, three was Baby Doll. She's the reason the weapons got in the ring.
Yep. Well, just two guys telling a story. And there's actually some legitimate backstory to that match that had very little to do with what you've seen on TV. If I'm not mistaken, Magnum was getting married or dating or about to marry Tully Blanchard's ex. So there was probably a little bit of real life animosity there between these two guys.
The closest corollary I can think of is the mid 2000s when Matt Hardy and Edge were legitimately fighting over Lita in WWE. Matt Hardy was legitimately fired, snuck into the arena to get at Edge because Edge stole Lita from him in real life.
But
that's the closest I can think to that kind of blood feud to where they were literally wanting to kill each other.
And here's the thing. Here's what sets these guys apart, especially in that particular match. And later on, we're going to get in depth about this match, folks. I promise you. Me and Rich have already discussed it. We know when we're going to do it. But we're going to have a show later on, and we are going to go through the ins and outs of this match and discuss it with you guys, talk about it. I would love to be able to play snippets for you of the match. I'd have to figure out how to do that without getting my channel popped for it, because I'm not sure how.
It's fair use. We're discussing, so that would fall under fair use for media.
We shall see. I'm locked up. I just realized I'm locked up, and if anybody's saying anything in the chat, I can't see it. So, hold on a minute. I'm gonna try something.
Yeah, the only thing that's really been said was Stacy coming in and saying hi. By the way, hi Stacy. If you're still out there.
Oh, there we go. Now I'm back. That worked. Now I can actually see the chat again. Where was I?
I don't know. You were going on about doing the future episode with the iQuit match.
Yeah. We will go into an in-depth episode of this I Quit match. It's going to be a fantastic hour and a half with a commentary. I'm hoping to get a couple other people in for that one.
I will say this: the only place you're going to find a match probably that was bloodier than that match is over in Japan with one of their death matches that they used to do.
Yeah. But that is my favorite match of all time, period. Bar none. Now, here's something else. As far as I know, that match happened in 85, 86, like we talked. It would be 5 or 6 years before there would be another I Quit match that I know about. Unless it was happening on independent circuits. I don't know about that. Maybe. Or maybe some territorial shows that had a few that we didn't know anything about. But the next one I can remember was Ric Flair and Terry Funk, which was also a damn good match. Which, by the way, Ric Flair won. But it was a brutal, brutal match. And it was on Clash of the Champions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Terry Funk is a crazy dude. Anyway, I mean, you talk about Japanese death matches. Yeah, Terry Funk made his name doing those matches.
Yep.
Once he got to be where he wasn't the main event go for a world title anymore in either in NWA or whatnot, then he went over to Japan and was doing the death match scene. And there's a reason why they call him and Mick Foley hardcore legends.
Yeah.
Those two guys were nuts with the matches they would do.
It was absolutely brutal, those matches. Hey, Mystic Guns, how are you? Well, Rich, is there anything else you want to touch on before we get off here tonight?
There was something I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it was. You had your phone problems. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, well. There's always next week. And for those of you who are interested.
I remember what it was now. When you do watch the I Quit match, most of the blood in that match comes from one weapon. You remember what it was?
Well, they were bleeding before the chair got thrown in the ring, but after the chair got thrown in the ring, it got a lot worse.
Yeah,
and the microphone.
Yeah, it's not, and we're not talking a metal chair like what you see in wrestling now. This was one of those old school wooden chairs, and that thing got busted into so many pieces.
Yeah. And that's actually what won the match.
I was going to say, we'll save what happened at the end of the match or when we talk about when we actually have the episode about the match.
Yeah. But like I said, that's going to be a ways off. Now, here's the plan for those of you that are interested. Me and Rich are planning on running this show once a week at this time slot, 6 or 9 o'clock, Saturday nights for the foreseeable future. I'm hoping that in time we'll get a few other people's on the panel. Hopefully Sarge will stop in from time to time. I know he loves professional wrestling as much as I do and as much as Rich does. I'd love to see Sarge in here. I love Sarge to death. He's my buddy. And there's a few others out there that I know. I would love to promise you that in the future I would get some guys on here that's actually into the business. I'm going to try. I'm not making promises. I'm going to try to get some of these guys that we talk about and discuss in here. I'd love to get guys like Bill Dundee, somebody that's actually there. Hell, I would absolutely kill to get Jerry Lawler in here just to hear some of the stories he has to tell. Could you imagine that, Rich? Not likely to happen, but I would enjoy the hell out of it if it did. Anyway, I think we're going to call it a night. Rich, what's your final words?
Final words. Be sure to check out This Week Unloaded tomorrow night at around 8:30 Eastern over on Unload Media. And that's about it. That's about what I got.
Okay. I will have a show coming up Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Might surprise you with what I've got planned. Maybe not. We'll see. I've got to get a hold of some people and see what they say. If it works out the way I'm hoping it will, I might have a big surprise for you guys. I'll let you know. I'll keep you informed. Y'all take care. God bless. I love you. We'll see you on down the trail. Hey, I stole that from somebody. I ain't going to say who.
Would his name be Santee?
Could be.
Later, folks.
Bye. We're clear.